One thing I love is rides. I'm sure that's not what you expected me to say. Good morning, Elder. But I love rides like amusement parks, county fairs, small town, especially the carousel in Paris. Like, there's so many places around the world that I have been, and I love when I find rides. I love when I find little villages with funny rides. I love when there's amusement parks and there's teenagers screaming and expecting us to be sitting waiting for people to get off of rides. And instead, I'm waiting my turn to get on the ride and have fun. I will tell you a story about carousel. So, one thing you don't want to be as soul is one of the animals on the carousel that doesn't realize you move a lot, but you don't go anywhere, right? It's almost like better to be this ride and shift timelines. Watch the drop. When they drop, that's your see metaphorical drop. Drop the trash. Move your timeline. Now, when you look in the back, that ride that's spinning around, we used to have that at our high school carnival. Our high school had a carnival every year, like on that movie Grease, where we would have a ride like that. We would have booths that we manned, meaning like we as the kids, like the cool kids or whatever you want to call it, the alphas, we would make up booths to raise money for things we wanted for our school, like a little monument or a gazebo, right? I don't know if our parents really like paid for most of it, but I know we raised money so that we could help charities and all kind of stuff like that. So we had that ride, and then our booths would be like but it like they would get like the girls that were really really pretty to man one booth because of the double entendre. So we would give away Hershey's Kisses, but you paid like $1 or $5 for a kiss, and then the pretty girl would hand you the kiss, but you don't get to kiss the pretty girl. That's why they had the pretty girls at the booth for the double entendre. And then And then, in order to not ever be snobby or unkind or cold hearted towards people that didn't have things, we knew what it was like not to have things. I love this little drive in because that is one of my favorite things to do is go to the drive in and watch movies outside. That way you can look at the stars. It's kind of like Shakespeare's Globe in London. You can watch the stars and the movie at the same time. Whereas the Globe in London, I get to watch the play. And you know how much I love Shakespeare. I always say you never get anyone's name tattooed on your body except for God or Shakespeare, right? Not that you should get anyone's name ever tattooed on your body, which is why I made that up for people to start doing that. It's probably the number one reason for cover-ups, not to mention scarification. So if you look way, way in the back, you'll see where it says North Pole Mailing Room. Every year for Christmas, I usually make a theme, and then I make every single thing as a part of that theme. So one year I did the mail room for the Grinch, the Grinch Who Stole Christmas, but I did the mailroom of Whoville. And I mean, I made letters, like fake letters to the Whovilles, every ornament on the tree. I didn't make the tree, right? I used to make trees, like these trees that we're looking at. I used to make those trees and miniature things called room boxes or eggs that look like Fabergé. I can make anything. So when you have a certain vibration where you can make anything, you usually also can call forth anything. And very often, there are things that they might have billions of dollars, but they don't have your vibration. And it's not that every person with money lowered their frequency to the point where they still need to steal your energy. It's like my friend Michael says, there's two teams, right? I don't believe there's two teams, but that's the way Michael explains it to me if somebody's doing something bad. he always says, you can't switch teams. You're born into your team. And he's like, he'll either say, let me handle it, or they'll get theirs, or, like whatever it is, the world needs you to be at your frequency. That's the point of this talk. So if the world needs you to be at your frequency, and then these hooligans are trying to make you lower your frequency, then see how Santa's like flying through the air with the reindeer? Some people's brain would say, how come there's only 4 reindeer? Physics. Because that engineer figured out it would be cooler to make Santa fly through the air for us to watch when we were little kids. We used to just be so amazed at each person's house because, of course, we had to go to the elders' houses. We had to go to the great aunts' houses. We had to go to our grandmothers, our great grandmothers. Like, we had to go to everybody's houses. And don't be offended, men, or you guys with your little equality stuff. I didn't grow up in an equality type of family. I cook, I sew, I bake. And then the women in our family also own or run companies because we've always been like that since the 1800s. Like my Aunt Lucy ran a whole city, and all women as all the different officers in that city. And she did that in the 1940s and 1930s. So we cook, right? And I don't mean like we know how to cook. I mean, we cook for our families. We cook for our husbands, even though we own companies and even though we work, because we know that we want our vibe, right? Before the 70s came and it's like, oh, you vibe, right? As a scientist, I'm going to say what? Frequency. So the frequency of this joy, the frequency that I'm giving you now, the frequency because I'm present, the frequency because of what I'm filming, as opposed to not giving you Christmas joy. What if you didn't grow up in places that show you how to build these dioramas, right? So if you see it as this is a little world, each one of those are created. Well, I was raised by people who would teach me or make sure I learned anything I wanted to learn. So if you look and you turn one store into something you work on and build, right? So the North Post mailroom, and then where it says Santa's Plaza, and then where it says gourmet popcorn. I know how to make each of those things. And then I would spend time throughout the year making every single thing and then putting it together. I don't plan all year for it. I usually like to decorate. I formerly decorated the day after Thanksgiving. When I grew up, the day after Thanksgiving is when I would decorate for Christmas. As I grew older and learned about frequency, I started telling you guys to decorate the 1st of November. And then God told me in the last couple years, decorate for Christmas October 1st. That's not a joke, but my students are probably cracking up because my students know why, right? So my spiritual students and clients know why I would say decorate October 1st. Now, if you start trying it, right, you will see what my students and clients see. They always want my vibe. They want my frequency, but they don't try to act vampire about it because they know very bad things happen when people do that. It happens, bad things happen to you, bad things happen to your frequency, bad things happen to your life, bad things happen around because the universe needs chosen ones. That was not a phrase when I was growing up. It was not a phrase. So you see these people in this hot air balloon? My mom and dad used to do that with me at the zoo where I grew up. They have it's like a ski lift, but it takes you over the zoo and then you can see all the animals. And my parents would do that. And then they started taking me separately because, dads are fun. And my dad was very like Southern gentleman and kind of wild too from, childhood abuses. He had some stuff where he would do what he was not supposed to do, but he would do it anyway. And so we were on that and my dad started shaking it and my mom got so scared and so mad all in the same moment. She wouldn't ride with him anymore. So I didn't get to ride with my parents together anymore. They still took me separately because my mom would just be like, he's not about to kill me. And she didn't want us to do it, but daddy would take us when she didn't know. Like she knew She knew we were with him, but she didn't know he would like sneak and take us to the zoo and put us in that same lift that she swore she'd never get in with him again, right? So I like things like this, but this is what you don't like people do. If you look down in that corner right there, in front of the carousel, you'll see a guy with games and toys. I love those guys, right? I know that I learned later that they grew up and their whole thing is to cheat you, right? So it's hard to win the games, but I always win the games anyway with such good aim. I usually play games that are shooting games or darts or something like that, and then I win, and then I get the prize, and then when the guy tries to cheat me and give me the little prize, I said, oh, that is so not fair. I said, were you planning that? And then they give me the bigger prize too. Sometimes I don't even play and they give me the bigger prize, but that's why people want to steal your chi. People want to steal your chi because energetically some frequencies, some creatures know, right, give you gifts because the universe blesses them when they bless you. So they'll just walk up and give you gifts. That makes other people mad because they don't understand why it's happening. But the elders explained that to me. Now, if you look at where it says the kitchen in the far back, it's like a little fake gingerbread bakery. I love making bakeries the most. So the miniatures that I like making the absolute most, you know how some guys like making model trains, right? Like on Beetlejuice, right? Model train rooms. I like to make things that make people happy, and then I give them as gifts, or I donate them to charities for fundraisers, or balls or luncheons or teas where we need to have people donate things. I'm usually the person on that committee or the head of the committee to procure things for the auction. So sometimes we get like cars or trips to Europe donated, but I like to make stuff like this for people who don't know how to make it, but who like to make different scapes or have different miniature things. My favorite things to make are libraries, like miniature libraries, because usually I have 9 floor-to-ceiling bookcases with some of the most beautiful, rare books in the world. And then also I like esoteric books. So, but my house burned down in the wildfire, so that was all burned to ashes. 30 plus years of that collection, going around, get it from all around the world. But when I make little shops, that's my favorite thing to do. I don't like to make fun houses because I'm not trying to make places for creepy things to go in and live. But I do like to make candy houses, right? So little tiny bakeries, little tiny candy shops. And, they're not so tiny. They're about 12 to 20 inches. And I make multiple stories. And I make all this stuff. I either make them edible, like gingerbread architecture, or I make them out of wood and different sculpting materials or ceramics. And then I don't keep them all. I like to make them, but I usually give them as gifts if people appreciate it, because I hate spending like hundreds of dollars making something and then somebody thinks I was just being cheap because I gave them something that they don't appreciate or know the value of. So I just give them stuff they appreciate, like pajamas. But I like making stuff, and then charities like this kind of stuff because it's really expensive to engineer and do the electricity and make the cars moving and, everything. Like this little drive-in, I love it. I can't get over this little drive-in. It's so perfect. But what I want you not to do is you see those houses up there? See how it's like, it looks like a neighborhood that is above the other neighborhood? If you live in a neighborhood above other neighborhoods, don't forget to leave your house and go have fun. Okay? Because I have a lot of clients like that. I have a lot of clients who whoever it is with low vibrational skills, stop trying to look in my space. Stop trying to see what I see. Because unless you are clairvoyant, clairaudient, empath, telepath, with psychometry, lab-trained remote viewer, master remote viewer, and 2 other gifts that I'm forgetting that God is telling me I have that I forgot. then you're not going to be able to see what I see, but you are going to pay for trying to look in my space. So back off and get out, because this is for chosen ones to not have to be so disheartened for having to be invaded or put upon by things like you. If you have superpowers, use them to make your life better. Now, one thing that you can't see from this vantage point, which is kind of good that we're talking about frequency, because frequency is all about vantage point. Timeline shifting is all about vantage point and how much you're willing to risk, right? So are you willing to right now be walking down the street and all of a sudden the whole street changes and you're wearing different clothes because you change your consciousness? Yeah, if that's not going to freak you out, that's a master timeline shifter. So people trying to shift your frequency to some lower vibrational thing, what you can't see is there's a thing way in the back, and there's a little fortune teller. So behind the kitchen, the popcorn place, there is a little place with the circus draping and everything. And my mom used to always let me go in there because she liked me to be able to find people like me until we figured out there aren't any people like me. I mean, I gave birth to a person like me, but my child was kidnapped when she was 2.5. So I helped her develop her skills. And when I say develop her skills, like master certain gifts that's not for me to share what somebody else's gifts are, because some people are so envious they target other people's gifts. But the last thing, I'll give you guys like 2 more minutes because I have to get to a meeting. But always know yourself. Like if you want to shift timelines, I used to be so embarrassed. You see that little station wagon where they're putting a tree on top? I would be embarrassed when we were doing that with our tree, because that station wagon was so ugly and so unfashionable. And my mom would say, yeah, but it takes you and all your friends to the amusement park when you want to go. And I didn't think it could get worse than the old school, like wood panel station wagon, because my mom drove a hot rod. My mom drove a Nova, like a souped up hot rod, but that only carries 4 people, and those cars, at that time didn't even have really good seatbelts or no seatbelts. So she also got this station wagon, right? And we were so embarrassed. We were always embarrassed. But she got it right at the time when we're teenagers, and teenagers are usually always embarrassed by anything their parents were doing because they're trying to figure out themselves as an adult. So when you take the time and you look, 2 things. That station wagon always did get us to amusement parks, always did get us anywhere. It felt like 13 people, but it was probably supposed to fit 8. And it was like the one that's so big and long that 2 people, the last 2 back 2 seats faced out the back window instead of the front window, because you never see anything except for the backs of your siblings or aunts or uncles or friends' heads. So those 2 people sat in the back. The window faced the outward window. And then I want to talk about, I'm glad my mom showed me, because my mom always showed me to be grateful for everything, and I was always such a good kid, right? I'm still a good person. I've never been bad. I've seen bad stuff. I have a lot of bad friends. I know how to be a villain, but I've never been a villain, right? You master your energy. Look how Santa's straight chilling, right? Santa's sitting on the back of the bed of his pickup truck with Mrs. Claus. You just can't see it. It's really tiny, but it's right in front of you. Sometimes you don't see the tiny blessings in front of you. This is a thing I don't like. And this is the last thing I'm going to show you so that you can catch it spiritually. Spiritually, pain in the tuchus. The Ferris wheel. I don't like the Ferris wheel because it's like people that don't change your consciousness, right? You're on the same ride. So if the wheel is earth and the little seats are rocking forward, why? Because of physics, because it's turning. I'm a neuroscientist, so if you want to poo-poo this, go right ahead. But if you want to change your consciousness and get this free healing and timeline shift that my lives are doing for you over the next couple days, right? 3 days. This saves you $18,000 to $50,000 and changes your life forever and gets some villains off of you and gives you skills to keep them off of you. And if you're a villain, it even helps you change your frequency and stop feeding on people like the low level parasite, right? So Earth is the wheel, you're in the seats, physics, right? Turning and turning. So you do get to see different stuff, but you're still on the same wheel. So perspective is like that. A timeline shift would be if you were on this wheel and realized really you went from the carousel, right? So you went from a carousel standing still to a carousel that was moving to a fun house where people tried to drive you crazy and send every low dark shitty thing stuck in one corner, one area with nowhere to go, right? And then you went through some drops, you went through some lifts, you went through some drops, they tried to send you back to the fun house. I want you not to go back to the fun house unless you feel like it. I want you to be able to walk through the fun house and own it and then do what you want. So you don't drop in frequency. And then you look at the stars and you listen to the stars and you think everything that gives you blessings, like everybody at the drive-in, right? Like Santa and Mrs. Claus, like the little dogs in the back of the pickup, like the man sitting by himself in the convertible, right? And then you come back onto this wheel and you realize you're still operating, but you're operating at a higher frequency. So now you see the world better. Now you see that you don't need to be part of a snowflake job every time somebody with a low vibrational frequency decides to do something like steal your energy. I don't know anyone else that people have stolen as much stuff from as they stole from me. Like, I have met other people whose houses were stolen, but I've had 6 houses stolen. 6 houses that I owned. 5 I owned, 1 was given to me, but that still means it was still mine, right? But imagine, I didn't lose them. People did fraud and stole them. People committed crimes and stole them. People took my deed and put their name on it and said, use racism or classism or black magic or combo and laughed about it. And not to mention 11 cars. All blatant crimes on cameras while people laughed. Well, some stuff happened to those people that we're not going to talk about today. Right? And it still happens to people, and it's still happening to people. And that's the way that the universe works, because I don't run the universe and you don't run the universe. Here's something no one tells you. You run your universe. So what you just saw while I did this for you guys, guess what? Somebody else saw something totally different. And you all got a healing, because I work as your lighthouse, right? And what does the lighthouse do? The lighthouse makes sure that ships travel safely through what they can't see. You can't see. I'm a scuba diver, right? You cannot see in some oceans. Some oceans, you might be 30 feet deep and it's pitch black. You don't know what's next to you. There are times where I try to use my gifts. Oh, God said that's one of the gifts I forgot about. So I taught my daughter how to do this, how to stand on the shore and call ocean animals to her. And so I was on a boat and I decided I wanted to see some whales. So I called them. I opened my heart. That's what you do. Open your heart and you ask God. And then you ask the universe to give you the gift. And then 8 whales came. So many whales came that only 6 fit around the boat. And they swam around the boat in a circle. And then as they swam around the boat in a circle, like a tight circle, right? We could reach out and touch them. I was so scared the boat was going to collapse or something, right? Would it go in on itself, or would it capsize, right? Which capsize means tip over and we fall out, or tip over and we could fall out. Or would the boat sink or from a wave, right? And then I said, no, I asked for this gift. So sometimes you ask for a gift and it's so incredibly shocking when you get it that you think it's not a blessing and you send it away. Well, go back and get your gift. It was still your gift. You just didn't fully have the consciousness you thought you had when you asked for it, but the universe delivered it. So go back and get it and go, hey, this is my gift. I don't care who tried to interfere. I don't care who cast a spell. I don't care who wished ill. I don't care who wrote. I don't care who stole energy. That's my gift. I asked for it, right? So my daughter used to crack up because she would be on the shore and she would call the dolphins and she was like, they came again, right? And she'd just be screaming. People would look looking like, how on earth did she do that? I was like, open your heart and ask the universe. Open your heart, align with God, ask the universe. Open your heart, align with source, ask the universe. The universe is always gifting you something. It's just that lately we were infiltrated by 10 million buttheads that were criminals somewhere else. Came here, and imagine 10 million people with a criminal black magic vibe who come to a country whose money says in God we trust. And then you go back to how many people's teachers didn't have credentials for the last 19 years in California, and they just sat around and talked to the kids because the district policy was everybody gets an A or a B so the parents don't complain. So they talked about triggers and having triggers, and they talked about that fake teacher with no credential sitting in front of your kids talked about their mental illness. They talked about mental illness every day, all day. So now look at the stuff you don't notice. Did you notice that cobblestones and bricks have been drawn on the balusters holding up the houses, right? What are all the things you aren't noticing? I bet you're noticing every evil person trying to put you in a fun house. It may even be multiple people. It may be multiple types of things that are calling themselves people. And guess what they're doing? They're trying to get you to look over here. Instead of have your consciousness, change your consciousness, change your timeline, rise above, look above. Rise above is not about putting someone down. It's about what is the highest possibility of this occurrence? What is the blessing I can get from this evil thing somebody just did, right? Like when my house burned down in the wildfires, people were amazed. Of course, I was in shock to the point where the police on the megaphone had to tell me to get off the freeway because I wasn't going fast enough on the freeway. I had driven out of the fire. I drove my car out of the fire. And so imagine being in the mountains and you drive out of a fire. The sky is red and you're driving by flames. It melted. It slicked my tires. It was so hot on an off-road vehicle. So imagine by the time I mentally was able to get to where I wasn't driving through fire anymore, I guess I relaxed. And I got on the freeway because I was trying to get out of the fire zone, right? But I was driving slowly and I didn't know I was driving slowly. So the police realized I was driving too slow for traffic because I was driving like 35 or 40. And I was in the slow lane, but the officer got on the megaphone and said, this is unsafe. You have to get off the freeway. I didn't even realize I was driving slowly. So the ones trying to keep you in the funhouse creepy zone where they're acting like a circus of demons, guess what? They're stuck there. You're not. And they don't have to be stuck there if they stop using their energy getting tricked by lower level demons until they become lower level demons. But then imagine if somebody sends 10 million lower level demons to your town and they're running from probably, a couple thousand upper level demons who are looking for them. And that's who's cooking your food. So I'm going to stop cooking your food. So I'm going to stop a non-working carousel, like a carousel that's halted. Yeah, you're safe because you're stuck there. All animals in the carousel are stuck there. But some at least think that they're having fun because they're on a carousel like this one. See, they're on a carousel that's moving, that seems like they're going somewhere. But those animals are stationary. I know because I built lots of miniatures and I collected antique carousel horses, like to be like in my vestibule or my garden or my child's room when she was born. I found antique carousel animals to buy and put in my home. because I love carousels that much. But those animals, the pole just is automated. And so it goes up and down, so it feels like you're riding. And then the wheel turns, right? So the wheel is earth. The pole is a stagnant consciousness because you're locked in on that pole and you just have different experiences. That's it going up and down, right? But you're not really changing your consciousness, but you're still locked into a pretty nice, cool place. Most souls are right there, right? Most souls don't even realize that you're telling the truth when you're talking about people doing hexes and curses and spells. Well, you know what? People got so bold that there's 900 hours on my house cameras from different houses of people doing that with audio. You see? So just imagine, with audio, you get to watch the whole thing like a movie. But you don't want to be that. You rise above. You have fun while you're doing it. Like the shooting star, going round and round. Change your consciousness, changing your view. Uplift some other people, like the snowflake paradox. Change your consciousness, changing your view. Uplift some other people, like the snowflake paradox. Sometimes you're not dropping, you're going to load up and help other people what you learned where you were to rise above, and then just chill, right? Chill. Pick a consciousness that allows you to always change timelines and not let people who want you to have a lower timeline make you take part in their silliness. And sometimes you might get to a consciousness level where you help those people. I helped people like that. I didn't teach them believe what I believe. I didn't even change what they did in their practices. I just changed their frequency for all the hurt and pain that somebody else did to them so they can have a good life. Now, I did retire from doing that for two reasons. One, some of them were really like racist and mean, and I didn't know because I only asked if they were victims. Some of them were there to try to see what I did so they could pretend to do it for people, which they hurt people because they didn't have the skills to do it for people. I don't need your energy in order to change it, right? The group can be 5,000, the group can be 10,000. It doesn't matter how much the group is. I have the energy that I can change that whole group, right? I just want you guys to not be with people that change you for the worse. And then there are groups that you take part in where you all give some of your energy to make a group energy, and then that group energy helps you. But there are very few groups like that. There are groups that say they do that, but then there might be 5 or 6 people just harvesting. Like I'm in a group where we all are teachers or masters or whatever, but that means we will all be alone unless we're around our students. And we don't mind being alone because it's very peaceful when you have a high consciousness. It's very peaceful being alone because you don't have to adapt and change for other people's frequency or vibration. But it's not good to just be alone all the time. And take that from somebody who, I have bought a house where I was just, me and acres of land. I bought a house and land. Normally I own 22 acres of land, right? And then my first house that I built, so I built 2 houses and I bought 3 houses, and then the one that was given to me. So that makes the 6 that were stolen, right? And what you don't want is somebody to steal your soul, your hope, your vibe, your chi as loosh. Now, what is loosh? Loosh is a word that the hippies taught me because in the 70s, they did so many drugs. They used to see people plug in and eat in other people. I've seen that 3 times in my classes with people that I literally just kicked out of the seminar because they plugged into people the moment they sat down. Like day 1, they sat down and started plugging into people. I didn't even know that was a thing. I knew it was a thing because it happened to my clients and I fixed it, but I didn't know somebody would come to a healing seminar or a workshop to learn skills, or to turn on your gifts, or to turn off your gifts, or to get better control of your gifts. To get better control of your gifts. And because they wanted to be predator to people, guess what happened? They did not get their healing. They didn't get to change their consciousness. They got exposed, right? Usually I'm not going to interrupt the seminar and go, villain, right? But I had them leave. They did not get a refund. The universe handled them and all the crap that they did. And then I protected my students, and then I cleaned everything they did. And then I did something that one of the women, there are a few women on the planet that I call sister, because we are teachers and we have similar gifts. We don't have the same gifts, but they might have two of the gifts I have, right? I have all of the gifts. I have not met anyone else that has all the gifts that told me they have the gifts. And I don't look in people's space without permission. And so often there are people like, oh, if you can see so much, you can do so much, why can't you say I'm a monster? I'm not looking in your space. If you're a monster, God's going to show me, or your monster's going to show me out of arrogance. But looking in people's space without permission is a spiritual violation. It's like if you're at the shopping mall and you got x-ray vision and look at everybody through the material objects, right? So if you look through their clothes, if you look in their purse, how much money, you look and read people's future to see what's coming for them, then something's going to come for you. And it's not going to be something pretty. I'll talk to you guys this afternoon.